Do you feel like when you're in these kind of spaces that is there a moment where you put a pressure on yourself to kind of extend and do networking because you've now got access to everything? But do you find that it is doing the work for you, or do you find that you need to also kind of pitch in and do something? Or what is that space that you navigate? How is that space for you?
That's a very good question. I think it's both, hey. And we were
Yeah.
actually just listening now to Helen Nicholson, who's the queen of networking, as she's known, speaking
Yeah.
about that your network is something that you have to make work.
Yeah.
Because yes, it's there. Yes, you have access to those people, but it's all about strategically tapping into those networks. So when you
Yeah.
get into a situation going, who do I know and who do they know?
Yeah.
And then what doors does that then open? So it's yes, having the network, but it's also working the network, having the coffees, having the conversations, checking in,
You're right.
making the time and going, hey, how are you doing? So that it's more than just transactional. It's something you're building for the long term. The keynote I gave yesterday, one of the key lessons was building bridges before you ever have to cross them. And I think
Okay.
that's a very big part of it, right? Is looking at your everyday and your schedule and how you build your business around what are the bridges that I'm actually building?
Yeah.
And then later on, when you find I need to get to that place, but I don't know how, then you look back at the bridges that you've built and you go, oh, that's a bridge that
All
could
right.
actually help me to get there. You call that person up, but because you've been building that bridge for years, you can go, hey, I need to cross. Do you mind helping me out?
Have you ever felt awkward in trying to access that bridge? Because, like, when it comes to that moment, I do feel as if within life you can just kind of have a momentum. You can talk to a certain amount of people. You know,
Yeah.
you've got family, you've got business, but then you have, you know, a little bit of the unknown. And maybe the unknown is a part of that network. How do you kind of tell yourself or break out of yourself and just go and say, okay, this is somebody that I want to reach out to? Like, what is that internal conflict? Like, could you speak on about that?
For me, it's a few different things. One,
Yeah.
it's the introvert part of myself, and I absolutely understand that that's a box I put myself in.
Yeah.
But then the other part of it as well is the imposter syndrome, because
Yeah.
oftentimes the people that I do want to reach out to, regardless of who they are and where they are in the social sort of paradigm or structure, it's just, oh my goodness, what do I have to share? Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, networking or building these beautiful relationships is something that is a give and take. It's
Yeah.
me giving something to you and giving you some kind of value, but you giving it to me. So I would say for me, the internal battle has primarily been those two key things.
Yeah.
One, oh my goodness, I'm so shy. I'm
Yeah.
socially awkward just as a human being. But
Yeah.
because I know the kind of work I do, show
Yeah.
up when I need to.
Yeah.
And then when I go home, I lock the door and I'm going, oh, that was a terrible conversation.
Yeah.
You should have said this. You didn't say that right. So that's the part of myself that comes through quite a lot that I need to work with. And then the second one is, like I was saying, the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome that's going, what do you have to share with that person? Why would they even see value in speaking to you? What do you have to give?
Yeah.
Those two key things I found that I've had to work with quite a lot. But now I can get to a place where I can focus in. And one of the things that Helen speaks quite well about is when you are in a networking conversation and you are an introvert, that's
Yes.
a superpower, because then
Right.
you can go into a conversation and go, let's talk about you the whole time. And guess what people
Yeah.
like to talk about? They love to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And when you become the kind of person who talks about the other person so much, they feel like they have this sense of reciprocity that they need to lean into, because they're going, we've talked about me the whole time. Tell me about you.
Right.
And that gives you then the opportunity to, whether it's an elevator pitch or it's the value you can share, to lean into that. But then the other person feels so much more valued
Right.
by you. And you don't feel like you have to sell anything. None of
Yeah.
those weird feelings.
Weird conversations, you know,
Right?
the very shallow ones. But yeah, on the basis of talking about self, like, how do you find that within, you know, starting and just talking about it when it comes to spontaneous people that you just have to go and network with? Like, how do you find that journey? Because you did mention you're a bit introverted.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being the opposite of what you're looking for, you know, how do you find that within, you know, talking to people about yourself? How do you find that?
It is fairly difficult, I must say, and it's definitely
Yeah.
not something I can say that I've mastered.
Yeah.
But one thing that does work quite well for me is finding a similarity of some kind.
Yeah.
So if the person is a huge dog person, for example, or
Okay.
if they are in the learning and development space,
Yeah.
or if they have something, maybe they're from the town I used to live in.
Yeah.
Usually I find that does level the playing field, so we can start off on a conversation that we're fairly comfortable with, that I'm
Okay.
comfortable with, and then it sort of brings more and more out
All
of me
right.
that the person can still relate to. So I don't come in and someone is speaking about something that I have no idea around, and then I try
Yeah.
to latch onto that. But I pick up, it can be something super small, like, oh my goodness, I noticed you're wearing a pink sweater. That's my favorite color.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of items of clothing that are that color? And then we sort of go from there, and we see where the
Oh,
conversation
okay.
takes us. And I think that for me has been a strategy that works quite well. Then we end
Yeah.
up getting a little bit more information about each other through that.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
that's a very good point to make, because I do find within like making conversations, it always seems daunting and tough
Yes.
when it does happen, and it seems extremely intimidating. There'll be times and moments where you're reflecting and you're looking at somebody who might be of interest, and you're just like, but what do I say though? What do I, maybe they mention something or they talk about something and you're like, I don't know how to say it, when to say it, who to say it to, how to frame it.
Yeah.
And what I found is there is going to be a point within your life where you can decide to just absolutely go against what you know about yourself.
Oh, I like that.
And my thing is, the conflict I personally have is sometimes a comfortable space is just like you mentioned, it's the cue, it's the start, it's the ignition to being able to get yourself out of there. And my drive is to always be in an uncomfortable space and make the space comfortable.
Oh, I like that.
And so within, the setup that we're doing today, it's just that of, okay, I barely had a conversation. We've talked, certain amounts, but I am looking for the common ground immediately, and that's where I want, the connection to be, in the basis of curiosity.
Yeah.
So do you find like you do have curiosity within trying to know people? Is that something that you have? And if so, is like, what are the other blockers that you have? What are the other thoughts that go against you when it comes to just expressing yourself or just trying to grab an interest? What else?
I really like the point that you made just now, and I think there's something really powerful there, is that the similarities can create an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy to gravitate towards them, but it's also easy to stay in them.
Right.
And a lot of the work that we do at the Unlearners is around unlearning, is about understanding what
Yeah.
your comfort zones are, what your defaults are, what your conditioning is.
Yeah.
Because conditioning is so sneaky that you get to a point where you don't know where the conditioning ends and you begin.
Yeah.
Because you've started to tell yourself, that's who I am.
Oh,
Even though it's
okay.
who you chose to be. It's not
Yeah.
really who you are. And I think when you were speaking, you brought it to mind so clearly to me that that conversation around finding similarities it can start there, but it
Yes.
shouldn't end there, because
Yes.
then all you're doing is you are getting more of who you are,
Yeah.
what you already know, what you're comfortable
Exactly.
talking about.
Exactly.
And then you never grow, right? You
Yeah.
don't grow past that point. So I think that's a big one for me, is starting there, but then going, what are the less shallow waters, or maybe
Yeah.
slightly deeper waters that I can then ask about, that I can see
Okay.
how to navigate within that conversation? Because if someone is speaking about something that I have absolutely no idea about, often the thing with me, like we spoke about with the imposter syndrome, is me
Yeah.
going, oh, I have nothing to share. I am, stupidest person in the conversation.
Yeah.
This person's not going to think I'm credible. And then I'm going to want to
okay.
wing the conversation back to what I know so I can look smart again. But that's
okay.
really not the strategy, right, that you want to lean in with. I think something where you do end up asking more questions, and you
Yeah.
use what you think you know as a question.
Yeah.
So is it true? Oh, maybe I read this article the other day and it said
Yeah.
90% of us are doing 1, 2, and 3. Is that true?
True.
And then the
Yeah.
person gets to lean in with what they know, but you also get to challenge what you think you know
Yeah.
in that discussion as well. So I think that's a really powerful insight that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Really good. I love that. It's
So
powerful.
you spoke about like the unlearning. Can you just expand a little bit more about what that is and then what it means to you to have that? Yeah.
Sure. So there's so many different things around this idea of unlearning, but I'll never forget, I did a conference once for a multinational that they're headquartered in France, but they have a lot of great presence here in South Africa and across the African continent. And this was their Africa conference. And I asked the group, what is their idea of unlearning and what does that mean to them? And one of the
Yeah.
leaders stood up and he said, for me, unlearning is self-disruption. And I
Okay.
held on to that because for me, I've been doing this now for about 6 or so years.
Right.
And that has consistently been the truth that has come through, whether we're working with organizations, whether we're working around our unlearning coaching, whatever it is. It's that external factors are consistently disrupting us, right? You're looking at
Right.
the economy, you're looking at various shifts in society, you're looking at politics, policy, all sorts of things are consistently disrupting how we do business, how we show up, who we
Yeah.
think we are, the decisions we can make. But at the end of the day, a person who considers themselves an unlearner, which is what we call our community, is the
Right.
kind of person who can say, how do I go internally within myself and disrupt my ways of seeing, doing, and being?
Seeing, doing,
So
and
that
seeing.
I am
Yes.
seeing, doing, and being
Okay.
internally myself. So that
Yeah.
as much as the world is consistently changing around me, I can go, oh, I understand that I was wrong yesterday. It's fine.
Right.
Let me choose something new today.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world where it's not so great to change your mind. You get married, you choose a
Yeah.
career, all of these things. We build ourselves around that when you finally go, oh, you know what? I think it's time to change. People go,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
What do you mean?
Change? No, this is who you are. You said
Yeah.
you were this person. And so that's the idea around unlearning is to go, how do I self-disrupt
Yeah.
so that I can consistently be letting go and grabbing hold and letting go and grabbing hold.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is phenomenal in terms of just giving a good description of what it is, because I can see what it's about, and I can see that a passion sits there.
Oh, yeah.
And tell me about, the moment where that ignited for you. You talked about, finding your own way and there kind of being a resistance upon it.
Yeah.
Tell me about something personal within you that experienced that, where you experienced that in your life, anywhere, anyhow, but just tell me where that moment sits with you.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. I think for me, it's most probably the biggest one was my career change.
Yeah.
So I have a foundation in teaching.
Okay.
And I did some phenomenal opportunity where I got to specialize in educational psychology.
Okay.
And I did that in Canada and Ontario. And coming back and going back into teaching, I really started to understand that at the end of the day, what we are now calling the skills for the future of work or future skills
Yes.
are really skills that children start off with. I mean, you're looking at things like
Okay.
curiosity. Children are curious.
Yeah.
They are creative. They are they come up with these great ideas. They challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
But you have so many organizations that are going, the unlearners, all of these different organizations come and teach us skills for the future of work.
Yeah.
And so I find myself in a place where I was going, but people are starting off with these skills as children. I've seen them
Yeah.
in the classroom. What do you mean come and teach us these skills?
Yeah.
Something must have been happening in between that disrupted these skills or told you didn't have them.
Yeah.
Or somehow you wore the status
Yeah.
quo, you wore this is how we do business here, don't do that, don't ask the
Yeah.
questions, don't be creative. And so as much as we focus on the learning and the acquisition of skills, knowledge, and values, maybe our biggest work needs to be unlearning, building
Right.
our capacity to let go
Okay.
of this is how we do business here, don't do that, stop that. And then coming back into the
Yeah.
versions of ourselves that we've always been, those curious, inquisitive, creative children, which is where I used to be. So that's how that big link sort of happened.
Let's talk about where you used to be then. Let's go. Because, you mentioned about, the external factors that kind of refine or just take away the ability to learn. But alongside you, just where you used to be, what contributed to almost affecting all of this? You can go into it as much as you'd like, but I do feel as if that passion, it starts from somewhere.
It does.
And I do feel like reigniting that passion and allowing it to just have its beginning acknowledged is something that's also powerful too. So just tell me about some of the things that were factors in your life that you always felt like were just pushing you away or telling you to be less curious. They're telling you to be less thoughtful, telling you to be, sticking in a own lane of some sort. Tell me about that.
Wow. And you see, this is the thing, when you have to share some of those, then there's
Yeah.
certain individuals that may get affected in fairly different ways. So I would say definitely the first one is the environments we grow within, whether you're looking at individuals or groups like family, you're
Yeah.
looking at school, you're looking at church, if you've got a sort of church, mosque, temple environments, those different environments, I think I'll start off with those. So I think the first one that I can look at is school.
Okay.
School was a very big part for me. I always remember someone saying back in the day, children used to run from school home. And they used to go, I
Okay.
can't wait to go home because school, oh, everyone expects me to be something.
Yeah.
But for me, if I really reflect on my journey, especially during primary and high school, I used to run from home to school. Not because
Oh,
home was
okay.
necessarily terrible, but because school was so liberating for me. School
Yeah.
was a place where I could be this person who asked the questions. And
Yeah.
at home, you don't ask questions because I'm your parent and I've said we sleep at this time or whatever it is,
Yeah.
which I can understand, makes perfect sense now. When you grow up in retrospect, you understand these things. But school for me played such a pivotal role and helping me with that, even though home
Yeah.
creates that environment. My mom always used to say, oh, Zanele, you're so lazy, always finding a shortcut to everything.
Right.
And over time, I understood that to mean something else. And my dad always had this perception around me that I was breaking everything and I was, so naughty. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be strapped to a corner because, you're touching everything. But for me, that was exploration. But the way
Okay.
that it was understood made me shrink back and go, no, you're not supposed to touch everything. Sit
Yeah.
back. Don't do too much. Don't explore. Don't break the clock to see how it works and then try fix it again.
Yeah.
Because that was literally how I worked. That was how I was. I would go, how do I break that thing? See what's happening on the inside and then put
Yes.
it back together so that I
Yeah.
can understand it. So all of those types of things had me shrink back, but school I found became the place where I could go,
Yeah.
it's good to ask the questions. It's good to break the things and then
Down.
put them back together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big part of it for me.
I like how, and you mentioned a little bit beforehand that in describing yourself was a little bit difficult, but within the answer that you just gave, that's kind of given a very good description of who you are at your character at the core. And I think being able to always be somebody who can dissect things, break them down, come back at it, look at it in different perspectives, say, I'm going to break it again. I'm going to break it again. Why not? There's something fun within that.
I love that.
And I think within everything that you mentioned, it's so important to hold to the core of your being. It's so important within everything that you're doing that you kind of have this alignment and just reaffirming an opportunity to say that, yeah, that's me. Because I do find it a conflict amongst any and everybody that I speak with, regardless of demographic or age, where there's something that doesn't align. There's something that is so different to what they want at the core of their being.
Yeah.
And it's always brought out within, whether it's work or personal, whether it's personal in themselves, whether it's within their dream. And it's great to see that it's aligned to such a degree where even now, like I'm happy that you like getting emotional and tearing up. Like I'm there for it. I'm there for it, and it's inspiring. And I'm just hoping that you hold on to that for a lifetime. That is you.
Yeah.
That is curiosity and breaking it down. It's
I
just,
love that.
and I'm so amazed to actually have had this opportunity to just speak with you, because it's unpacked a lot of things about myself. It's helped me understand more people too, because I do have siblings and sometimes they be breaking things down. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
Yo,
Yo,
give me strength.
like give me patience. Give me patience, please.
Yeah.
But within that is also just not being so reactive, because the home is a reactive state. And I see it within parenting. I see it within just being somebody older around siblings.
Yes.
And, always go into this constant mode of being on autoplay. And I just think that breaking away from that, in which you mentioned is the core of your being, it's something to be honored.
That's fantastic. I'd never made that connection between being the child that used to break things and now being the person who teaches organizations and people to break things.
So,
That is crazy. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to use that.
Yes,
I like it.
So, yeah, thank you for joining us. This is the
Thank you.
impromptu Oxano session, and your name, just to end things off, is?
Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.